Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 222 of the SoxProspects.com podcast. We're the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield, and I'm the executive editor of Sox Prospects. I'm joined, as always, by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, we're in kind of a weird part of the season this year because the season started a month late, so we kind of didn't have that first month where there's just baseball. When it started, we had, we were looking at the draft 2, and then, we were getting used to the new, schedule and new protocols and things like that, the new leagues, the new alignments. And then we had, draft, and then we had draft signing deadline and trade deadline. And it feels like this is the first point here as we enter mid-August where it's just baseball that we're worrying about, where it's not all of this other extraneous stuff causing, there were events for us to focus on. Now it's just on the field.
Well, it's been a very busy year, I feel like. And it, as you said, it's been really condensed into kind of, May, June, July. We're super busy. And now we have about 2 months left, which is crazy to say because I'm used to, the midpoint in August being basically, we got 2 weeks left in the regular season, then playoffs. Some weird guys are getting promoted to get a taste of the next level. Whereas now there's basically we've got about 6 weeks left in the season. There's going to be baseball well into September. Guys are kind of, minor league guys are getting, we're having the debuts. Like I think 3 more draftees made their debuts today.
Yep.
Guys are the guys from the draft are matriculating onto teams. You've got some promotions happening. You've got some weird demotions that we'll talk about, I think. You got guys guys are everyone's coming back in and we're starting to ramp things back up, it feels like. And we're just focusing, as you said, just on what's going on the field now. We don't have to worry about who's potentially getting traded, any of that stuff. It's just what is happening on the field now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there's certainly a lot to talk about. In this episode of the show, we're going to be looking at a lot of news, those debuts, again, the eternal promotion season that is the 2021 season. Checking in on where's the Red Sox farm system rank relative to other teams in the league. We'll do check-in levels for the first time in a while, and we'll talk about how some prospects and not former prospects, they're both still prospects, are doing in the major leagues. We'll, of course, as always, get to your emails. I think there's a lot to fill in here. I went to Salem, which I just realized I owe our followers, our supporters on patreon.com/SoxProspects a game update, because that's one of the perks you get when you support the podcast by donating an amount per episode to the show. It's a great way to support the show, support the website, and get some cool perks in the meantime. And actually, Ian, do we want to announce the new perks that we're doing? Because I realized that's something that we hadn't talked about here yet, because we talked about this after the show last time. We've been trying to think of some new fun perks or goals that we were going to have for our Patreon supporters. And one that we decided we're going to start is that presently we are at just over $300 per episode. If we reach $350 per episode, Ian and I will watch. We're going to basically at every milestone, at milestones potentially, watch a baseball movie and record a special patron-only episode of the podcast scouting the players in that movie. And the first movie we will do, inspired by the fact that Ian did not understand the Chico's bail bonds reference, is going to be the Bad News Bears. So if we reach $350 per month, we will watch the Bad News Bears, record an episode, and put it on Patreon for our Patreon supporters to listen to. Hopefully that'll be fun, kind of funny. Have you always wondered what Kelly Leak's 2080 grades were for on the 2080 scale? You're going to find out. So we'll
80 flow, I can tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll the Bad News Bears, and then I'm trying to remember. I think there was another one we added, but it's escaping me right now for some reason. I know what the other thing was. Is we're going to start releasing some neat patron-only insight into the rankings on Patreon.com, including who prospects number 61 to 70 were in our internal rankings. And at a certain tier, you'll get access potentially. I think we're talking about, haven't decided for sure yet if we'll go there, I think, but some portion of our individual lists we'll put on there as well at a higher tier. So Again, check it out, patreon.com/SoxProspects. Great way to support the site. And, of course, for your emails, send them into podcast@SoxProspects.com. As I always like to say, we like to talk about or want to talk about what you want to hear about. So send them in. Wondering something, got a question, got a thought, got a comment, send it on over, and we'll probably discuss it on the show. Ian, lot to mention, so let's dive right in. I guess we'll go quick hitter style through the news. If you want to jump in and discuss any of them, then by all means, go ahead. In the Florida Complex League, we got a bunch more debuts since our last episode. On the 9th, the Red Sox added Nathan Hickey, Daniel McAvenny, Nico Cavadas, Kier Meredith, and Johnny Felix to the active roster. I think that might have been there when we recorded last. But then yesterday, the Red Sox added their first group of pitchers from this year's draft. Well, I guess Johnny Felix is. But their first group of drafted pitchers in Wyatt Olds, Jacob Webb, Christopher Troy to the roster, and all debuted yesterday, right? I didn't get a chance to check the box.
They did, yeah. That was interesting. I was going through the boxes as I do most days, and noticed, all of them debuted to. I think they all didn't give up an earned run. I think Webb gave up an unearned run, but Troy was like a perfect inning, 2 strikeouts. Olds was a strikeout, hitting a walk, I think, and then Webb was a hit and an unearned run, I believe, with a strikeout. So it's interesting too, because we were talking about the Red Sox minor league numbers and whether or not they will activate their pitchers, and I have a feeling I think it's just going to be the college arms. I feel like I guess they only drafted one high school arm, but
right.
I feel like that is like that they clearly don't have that much of a problem with their roster numbers if they're adding all those guys this year.
The other problem is, of course, the domestic reserve list limit. By the count that we have on our org page, which I haven't been able to double check yet, they're at 179 out of 180. And I think the way the rules work is you can go over that briefly, but you need to get back under within a couple days. It's not a hard and fast limit like, the 40-man roster is or something like that. So I don't know if it would be cuts. I don't know if it would be, guys going on the 60-day, Eduardo Lopez. We learned recently, I don't think I even mentioned this to you. I think I said it in the Slack, but it hadn't been posted on MILB.com, but actually got recalled from his rehab assignment. They ended his rehab assignment without activating him because he apparently tweaked something all the way back on August the 5th. So,
he had a setback, yeah.
Yeah, he had a setback, so maybe at this point he's a 60-day candidate. Who knows? But at any rate, Aaron Perry, maybe another 60-day candidate. Who knows? There's some guys who are on IL and have been for a minute. We don't really know what the injury is, but you start to wonder if they might start doing that more with guys like that to make room for draftees. At any rate,
definitely.
Certainly nice to see some guys getting on the field. In addition, promotion season, I guess, Ian. The one big promotion last week, we had anticipated that Nick York might get promoted. On the last episode, we talked about the fact that Cameron Cannon would get promoted. We anticipated that Nick York would get chain promoted with him. He didn't. Instead, it was Nick Sogard, like I said, might also be the counter move going down. It's weird because there was this chain promotion a few weeks back, apparently just for when guys were at the Olympics, of Ryan Fitzgerald from Portland to Worcester, Nick Sogard from Greenville to Portland, and Jake McKenzie from Salem to Greenville, and all three have been sent back. So clearly that was just a kind of chain fill-in sort of promotion.
Yeah, I don't love that with Fitzgerald. Like, he went up to Worcester and was 262, 345, 71 with 3 home runs in 13 games. Didn't look out of place at all. Like, he's 27 years old. I understand that, they want to get, like, Jack Lopez, ABs, Jeter Downs needs at-bats, but, like, I don't know. It's just weird to me that, I guess I wonder maybe then if, like, when Arroyo and Danny Santana cycle through and are off rehab assignments, maybe they bring him back up. But it's just strange to me that they would send someone like him down when he was, clearly ready for AAA and performing there. But, I don't know.
I think he may not have been playing every day, because I know at one point I was kind of wondering where the heck is Fitzgerald. And so I don't know if there was a particular reason for that or not.
But like looking at it, if you take Arroyo off, there's everyday second basemen like Jack Lopez or Chad De La Guerra. Like,
yeah, I guess he had played pretty much every day from the 29th when he was promoted through August the 6th, and then from August the 7th through August the 13th, he only started 2 out of 6 games. But then he started on the 14th and 15th as well. So maybe he tweaked something.
I don't know.
It was
looking
weird.
at it, like,
It was
They're
weird.
playing Jeremy Rivera every day. Like, you could easily move Munoz to left field and stick, Fitzgerald to third base or play Fitzgerald in the outfield. I don't know. It was just interesting to me that they demoted someone like him who was performing and clearly ready for the next step in his, development.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of strange. But at any rate, the Cannon promotion happened. Nothing else promotions-wise to mention. Ian, one thing that we talked about talking about this in checking levels, but I think we should hit on it here, is we keep getting asked about Blaze Jordan and Tyler McDonough and why they had not or have not played yet in Salem. Just to remind everyone, the two of them were promoted from the Florida Complex League to Salem on August the 3rd. Tonight, August the 18th, was Tyler McDonough finally debuted in Salem. Is he playing second or center? I presume second.
He DH'd. He DH'd today.
That makes sense.
He went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts.
Well, he hasn't played in 2 weeks, so that makes sense.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
But at any rate,
he did debut.
Yeah, so he debuted tonight. Jordan has not played yet. We looked into it. We don't know precisely what the deal is with either of them, but we do know that the team, they were unavailable. It's not that they were just sitting on the bench. Someone
Correct,
on Twitter.
Those are not guys you promote to sit on the bench.
No,
they were clearly unable
they were unavailable
to play for whatever reason.
I went to see Salem play Fredericksburg last Saturday in a doubleheader. I did not see either on the bench, so I don't think they even traveled, honestly. We don't know what the deal is. We do know that the team was hoping to get, what we heard and what I had tweeted is that the team was hoping to get Jordan back late last week and McDonough back this week. They have not gotten Jordan back, but they obviously have McDonough back now. Hopefully Jordan will be back in short order. Beyond that, we're not going to speculate, but that is what we know. That is all we're probably going to know. Again, take that as you will. Looking further, I guess some other rostery stuff, Ian. Rehab assignments. Ryan Brazier is rehabbing in Worcester. Edward Rosario.
He's bad again tonight.
Yeah, he hasn't had results. Alex Cora said this afternoon with the Boston media that I guess his stuff has looked like it did last year, so it sounds like he might be back soon. Again,
tonight was
rehab assignments are not about results. They're about getting out there and getting the stuff back and getting reps. So
yeah, he was 1 inning, walk and a hit. Hit was a 2-run home run to Rob Brantley. So that was tonight's results.
Yeah. Edward Bizardo started a rehab assignment in the Florida Complex League, so he'll be back active in 30 days. Obviously, if they activate him, they could always just activate and then option him, which I don't think you bother having him rehab in Worcester. I think you just, if he's going to go to Worcester, you activate him and option him rather than have him keep accruing service time. He's already burned the option.
I know, but the flip side.
Oh, the 40-man spot.
The 40-man spot, which is why I think they could max out the rehab time, because
that's a good point.
It buys you an extra 40-man spot for a few weeks.
That's a very good point, and we're going to talk about the 40-man spot situation. More random minor league free agent signings. The Red Sox signed Alex Claudio after he was released by, I think, the Angels. Another bullpen arm for Worcester. Probably not worth saying much more about.
He actually made his debut tonight.
Did he?
Or he's pitching as we speak, actually.
As we speak,
I should say.
Well, there we go. The other promotion we should probably mention is Salem reliever Ryan Fernandez got moved up to Greenville after absolutely shoving at that level.
He was no, but he's like 24. He shouldn't have been at that.
I think he was like 23, but
23. It was just the pitching situation was strange.
Yeah, they had a lot of older guys in Salem. Who otherwise might have been in Greenville, but they had the guys that would potentially have been in Lowell Salem. So, yeah, but Fernandez in Salem in 36 innings, struck out 42 guys, walked 9, 150 ERA. Made sense to move him up. Other transactions, let's see. And I guess the other stuff's all kind of the AAA Major League level. Happy trails to Matt Hall, Marwin Gonzalez, and probably Matt Andriese. Hall was released from the Worcester Red Sox, which you could kind of see coming. Frankly, he wasn't having a good year. Well, obviously, it was not good last year, and they were starting to accumulate some other AAA depth arms, and so he was cut. Marwin Gonzalez was, of course, released after being designated for assignment. Gonzalez just never hit. Ian provided some good value on defense, but When a team is struggling on offense like the Red Sox are tending to right now, being a good glove is not going to get it done. And then Andriese was also DFA. He hasn't been released or anything yet. He's would in theory still need to clear waivers. I can't imagine he goes to the minor leagues. I would presume he opts for free agency and tries his luck elsewhere.
I would think so.
Yeah. So.
And then I think you're bearing the lead with the most important.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about whether it's there. I have two other major league transactions. The first is that the Red Sox activated Kyle Schwarber, and that
boring.
Okay. Do we want to call him the mayor of Ding Dong City while we're at it, or do we need to credit Caracas?
I thought that was his name, but no.
Yeah, Travis Shaw's back, which is kind of interesting. It's like 2 years too late. But they're getting the band back together. First Brandon Workman and now Travis Shaw.
When he got DFA'd, I was texting with someone with another team, and I was like, "What do you think the odds are the Red Sox claim Shaw?" And their response was like, "Yeah, I could see it." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I mean it would make sense because why not?" And yeah, they did it anyway. Like I was kind of joking when I said that, but yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean,
yeah, it's a left-handed first base bat
who has a patient approach.
Right.
Which is something their team is lacking right now.
So,
I'm not sure how good he's going to be, but I mean, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for the season with Milwaukee before he went on the 60-day IL with, I think, a shoulder injury, Ian? I don't know if you remember, but
sounds right. I'll look.
Yeah, if you look real quick, I mean, he was hitting 191 with a 279 on base percentage and a 337 slugging. 616 OPS plus of 65. He was not having a good year at the plate. Last year with Toronto, he had a decent year, 239, 306, 411, OPS plus of 96. So he was a little below average. But again, 2019, he was pretty terrible as well.
Was it 2018 was his good year?
His good years were 17 and 18. Yeah. 17 and 18. 17 was the year he hit 31. 17, he hit 31 bombs. 18, he hit 32. Not great batting averages. I mean, look, best case scenario for the Red Sox is he's a guy who comes in, hits like roughly 240 with like a, 340 OBP with a little bit of power. Facing only left-handed pitching.
Right-handed pitching, you mean?
Right-handed pitching. Sorry. Yep. He's left-handed hitter.
Yeah. I think that's the role, and I get it though. Like, I think we'll probably get on this a little later, but I think his addition kind of signals it's near the end for Danny Santana, because they play more or less the same role with the Red Sox, and I just think that they had to do something though. Dahlbeck has just been horrific versus righties. I know he's in the midst of kind of a hot streak. His last week or so has been pretty good, but that's what he's going to do, and they needed someone else there. And there's no risk here. You take a shot, you see if Shaw can find lightning in a bottle for 6 weeks, plus the playoffs, and if not, he's gone in the off season. So I like it as like a low risk acquisition, especially because it's pretty clear they're not going to bring Costas up this year, and there's no one else in AAA who could play that left-handed first base role, because they're not going to give it to Franchy Cordero, who's struggled since his recall also.
Well, they optioned Franchy. I mean, that's why that experiment is
right.
Over.
My point is that they tried that and it didn't work, so it's not gonna be him.
Yeah, I mean, on Dahlbeck since August the 8th in 8 games, he's hitting. If I can bring this stupid box over so I can actually read it, he's got 10 hits in 25 plate appearances, 3 home runs. Here it is. Okay, yeah, 455, 520, 1.045 slugging. OPS is above 1.5. So, he's on one of the Bobby Dahlbeck hot streaks. This is what he does.
Yeah.
Granted, all 3 home runs came against Baltimore, so your mileage may vary, but
that's not the best pitching staff.
No, I mean, I think a lot of guys are going to get on hot streaks against the Baltimore pitching staff. But I can't imagine that this is buying him a heck of a lot more time. I think they need to figure something out as Kyle Schwarber is able to play in the field. And I think with Schwarber, they clearly rushed him back because the offense needed a kick in the rear.
I mean, he's getting on base. He's doing what the offense has really struggled to do is, he's not hitting yet, but I think he scored 4 runs in 14 plate appearances because he's walked, a handful of times. So that's kind of what Schwarber can do, and it really does bring a different dimension since a lot of the guys they have aren't exactly true on base guys.
It kind of bothers me too that like, I mean, I did a radio hit yesterday and they were talking about like, oh, the Yankees used all this prospect capital to go get all these guys. What do you think the Red Sox should have done that too? And I'm like, well, and we talked about this, but like, okay, so the Yankees went and got Anthony Rizzo for like twice the price of Kyle Schwarber. Essentially, right? I mean, because with both guys the Yankees traded would be top 10 in this system or at least close to it.
Oh, yeah. I think I mentioned it on the time of the deadline. I've seen both of the guys they traded, and I really liked the little guy Castillo, the infielder. He can really hit. Or sorry, no, that was a different trade. That was the Clayton Hope trade. Yes. Sorry, they traded Alcantara, who is highly regarded.
I think is the other guy.
Yeah. I've seen Vizcaino. I haven't seen Alcantara. I saw Vizcaino a couple years ago.
Right.
Alcantara is apparently really highly regarded. Like he would be he's a top 100 prospect according to some sites, and the Red Sox don't really have a comparable player to him. No. So that would have been a significant haul.
Yeah, in 4 games, Schwarber's hitting 364, 500, 545 with 3 runs scored. He's got 4 hits and 3 walks and 14 plate appearances. I mean, again, he's getting on base, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. Circling back to Brazier, I was just checking in with someone I know at the game tonight, and breaking ball was okay, fastball was flat. He was around like 94 with his fastball average, which sounds about what he usually has at. And just the thought was, even though he wasn't really all the way back, it's probably better than some of the stuff they're throwing out there in the bullpen, which I would tend to agree with. So yeah, we shall see if that gets him activated pretty close to, or maybe after. I think he's pitching back to back tomorrow, or was supposed to, which looks perilous because of the rain. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they were planning on having him go back to back seems to indicate he's pretty close to coming back.
Yeah, absolutely, which is kind of miraculous when you consider. I mean, I think what's happening this year with these very short rehab assignments, Ian, is these guys are doing a lot of work down in Florida before they get put on a rehab assignment, potentially, or something. I mean, it's just because you like you've mentioned, if you're on the 40-man, you can only rehab in AAA. You can't rehab at lower levels. It's different for guys who are on the 60-day IL, but if you're just on the regular IL and you're on the 40-man roster, you can only rehab in AAA, and I think that's part of why we're seeing these quick rehab assignments, because it's like, well, if they're going to be in AAA, let's just get them up. Like, once they get their timing back, just get them right up. We're not seeing the, like, week and a half long rehab assignments anymore. Maybe it's an organizational philosophy thing. Who knows? Yeah, but that's transaction news and things like that. Let's look really quick, Ian. Baseball America released their... Or do you want to do MLB guys first? Let's do Baseball America.
I feel like we should. Oh, I was going to say, I think we should just transition to the MLB quickly since we're kind of already talking about it.
Yeah, that's fair. So, I mean, just checking in on guys at the major league level. This is going to be the last month, most likely, that Tanner Houck is prospect eligible. He's only like 2 innings from graduating. And Jarren Duran is up as well. And sometimes when these guys go to the majors, we forget about them. We just stop, checking in on them, at least in a prospecty sense. But the fact is, look, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording in, and it's like sometimes in doing what we do and in trying to, provide a fair assessment of each player, you're forced into being the bad guy a little bit. You're forced into, having to talk it seems like you're just talking a guy down when you're being realistic. And I think with these are Tanner Houck and Jarren Duran, whose names I almost just switched, are 2 guys who we've kind of had to do that with a little bit, I think. And we're kind of seeing them struggle at the major league level. Now, part of that, we're not saying that this means they stink. Far from it. They're good prospects. But, we told you Jarren Duran was probably not going to come up and be the savior. He was going to come up and he was probably going to have some growing pains. And has he ever? If you look at Boston's, looking at Duran's numbers in Boston, he is hitting, if it'll come up, please, thank you. Yeah, he's hitting 222, 238, 370 in 24 games, 81 at-bats. He's got, 2 doubles, 2 triples, 2 home runs, 1 for 2 on steal attempts. He's only walked twice and he struck out 32 times. That K rate is not going to get it done. Here it is. His K rate is 38.1. in the majors.
And walk rate is 2.
And
It's like Bobby That's Bobby Dahlbeck-esque minus the walk rate. Dahlbeck at least had like a 10% walk rate with it.
Right.
And obviously, and this is the thing I think we talked about, I guess we'll start with Duran, is that, he's someone who's always taken time to make adjustments at the next level other than like his debut. When he got to Portland, he was bad for, 6 months, or not 6 months, for like half a season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's fair, because he came out swinging pretty,
in Salem, but that
starting right away in Salem. So, I mean, but he did it in Salem. So, I mean,
when he got bumped to Portland, he struggled. And then this year he was fair. Obviously, but I think the thing that just with Duran, and I'm getting a little concerned with this, is that the impact of Worcester on guys. Because Duran is someone that when I saw him there and we talked about it, his home road splits were stark. At home he was 277, 344, 589. In Worcester he was 233, 315, 411 on the road. And obviously he's not even repeating that road performance right now at the major league level. But I'm just slightly worried that Worcester is going to lead to some bad habits, because I know, having seen Duran there, he could just basically hit a fly ball, and if it was pulled, it was going out. And that kind of approach is easy to fall into when you look at your line every day and you're going, 2 for 4 with a home run and a double, or, 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and a single. Like, if you're doing that every day and a lot of it is ballpark related, you're not going to feel the need to change anything because you're seeing the results on the field. And I'm just slightly concerned that it's going to lead to some bad habits. And I'm wondering if that's something with Duran. It's kind of like, he's going from an extreme hitter's environment where he was facing some pretty bad pitching to straight up into a pennant race where he's facing, he's facing major league pitching, and major league pitching is so much better than AAA pitching. It's not even close. And I think the gap this year is even greater because guys are coming off a full season of not playing. Jaron Duran wasn't facing, MLB quality arms basically for the most of 2020. And now he's jumping straight into the pennant race after playing a pretty bad AAA schedule. And I just think that having the expectations that he was going to come up and be an everyday guy was a little out there, and especially assuming he's going to hit, because that was the thing we always talked about in AAA is even when, at AAA his K rate was decently manageable. I don't know if you can bring it up. He still had 84 strikeouts and 303 plate appearances. So what's that? That's like it's like a 28%, 26% K rate.
It wasn't nearly as bad as it's been in the majors. It was in the mid-20s.
But yeah, like, it's still a pretty high K rate, especially when, as we've talked about a lot, you add about 5%, give or take, to a K rate when they get up to the big leagues. Like, you're talking about a guy who
23.7.
Okay, so you're talking about a guy who would project for 28, 29% K rate at the big leagues, which is, in this day and age, is fine, but it's not great. It's not elite. And with him, his swing is just, he's gave up contact with it. Unfortunately, that was just part of the trade-off he made. And I think the problem he's seeing is that, MLB pitchers, now that the book is out, they know how to attack him.
MLB hitters. Pitchers. Sorry, you're talking about Duran. I had pitcher on the brain.
Yeah, and he's really struggled with fastballs this year. He's struggling with fastballs up and in, and anything on the inner half, he's just struggling. And then when you can't, when pitchers figure out you can't hit fastballs, but you also can't hit changeups, it's just a bad recipe. And like, the only pitch he's really had success against this year is breaking balls. He's 5 for 17 against them, but that comes with an expected batting average of 196, which tells you there's been a lot of luck there. And it's just his current like swing rates and everything is showing that I don't think he's just not ready for MLB pitching. And I have a feeling that, given the Schwarber acquisition and how things are kind of playing out now, I think he's going to end up back in AAA before the end of the season, especially when Christian Arroyo or someone comes back.
When they need the roster spot, sure.
And the thing I want to be clear, though, is like, this doesn't mean he's a write-off as a prospect or anything. Development is hard. It's not linear. These things happen. I still think Duran has the potential to be like a solid, 50 average everyday player. But I just think that the expectations got a little out of control. And I don't agree with the national prospect sites that are bumping him into the top 20, top 25 prospects in all of baseball, because I just don't see that type of player. And when you break down the tools, and I've talked to several scouts all year and even recently and seen their scouting reports that they submitted to teams, and you're not getting, like, it's just hard for me to see how you're getting a top 20, 25 player in baseball, or top 25 prospect in baseball with his scouting, like with the grades you're giving him, because the hit tool is just not there for that for me. It's a 45 hit tool, I would say. I think. And like right now, it's not even that. Right now, it's a 35, or, you could even, it's probably a 35 at best. So, we're talking about a guy who's a fringe average, maybe average hit tool at best, with above average power, fringy to average defender, and 70 speed. I don't think that is as good a player as people were kind of sold on, and I don't think it's anyone's fault. But I just think that with him, you got to be realistic, and it's hard to say that, but he has holes in his game. And this, of course, just like we talked about with what he did with the power, he could go home this offseason, work on these things, and come back next year completely different hitter again. That's the kind of thing, he wants to be the best. He studies the game, detail oriented. Like, he's clearly going to work on these things and watch video and see the issues in his game and could close them up. But just based on what we're seeing this year and what I saw in the minors and just talking to scouts, I just think the expectations were just too high on him. And that's why you just got to, he was never for us on the same prospect tier as someone like Tristan Casas. They're different types of players, and Duran has the potential to be a very solid, usable major league player. It's just, I don't think he's ready right now.
Well, just to clarify one thing you did say, though, like, to say that he was never on the same tier, I know I made the point that it was worth looking at and discussing.
I didn't think he was. No, I'm saying I didn't think he was.
Right.
That was an opinion.
Okay. No, but I'm just saying, like, it was worth looking at. It's just that wasn't the outcome we wound up with.
Yeah, for me, I just didn't. I mean, you can confirm this. I never considered it. It wasn't like close for me. No, I'm just saying fair. That. But that's just in my opinion. I don't consider them the same tier of player and never did.
Meanwhile, with Houke, and we're seeing with him, it's what we talked about turning the lineup over to the degree that they're getting him out after 18 batters faced at this point.
Well, I think that is the thing that is most like should give you the clearest idea of that we're not talking crazy when we say things like that. The Red Sox, and I went through it yesterday, he has not gotten out of the fifth inning in any start at the minors or majors this year.
That's not true. He pitched into the sixth in his second to last start.
Gotten out of the sixth. Sorry, I meant to say got out of the sixth inning. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
He's never pitched more than, I think his 5 innings is his most, though. He's not like done.
Well, that's what I was saying. That was the first time he has even pitched into the sixth inning.
Yeah, I don't think he's recorded an out in the sixth inning yet.
Yes, correct. No, that's absolutely correct. And this one start was the first time he even gave him the opportunity.
Yeah, and this is across the majors and the minors, so we're talking about how many starts is that? It's probably close to 15.
I've got his game log right here. He has made, come on, scroll up, 15 appearances, although 2 of them have been in relief.
It's 13 starts this year.
So it's 13 starts, right off the first couple of coming off of his injury.
Probably 10 starts or so.
Call it 10 starts that were like legit. He probably could have gone into the fifth.
Yeah.
Or into the sixth.
So I think, and then this is his usage since he was kind of pseudo called into the rotation. I know they're playing like roster management games with him, unfortunately, and he's getting called up and sent down kind of a lot right now. But 722, he faced 18 hitters. 728, he faced 15. 8-7, 16. 8-12, which was that longer start, 21, and then 8-17, 18. You're averaging right around 18 hitters, so they're comfortable with him facing the lineup twice. And I think what we saw yesterday, or what was that? Was that Tuesday? Yeah, it was the doubleheader. Mm-hmm. He was pulled after 58 pitches with the top of the order coming up.
Right.
Like, that should tell you everything you need to about how they view him as a player right now. That's not to say in the future he could be a 6-7 inning guy, but right now the fact that they pulled him at 58 pitches after 4 innings because they didn't want him to face the top of the order for the third time, that is the red flag, and it's because he doesn't have a third pitch right now. I understand he's been throwing his splitter more, but some of them are really bad, and he's just hanging some of them and kind of getting away with it. And until that pitch is a true third offering, and he also has to refine his fastball command, those two things that's the limiting. Too. Yeah, and this is the other. We'll get there in a second, but those with all of those parts, it's just he's not a polished pitching prospect right now. He's a very good arm with some very good stuff in short bursts, but the deeper he goes into games and the more he's exposed to the lineup, the easier he gets to hit. And I think, breaking it down even further, when you look at his numbers, hitters against him the first time through are 173, 204, 250. Second time through, 273. What? This isn't including yesterday's game.
Oh, well, I've got it as a starting pitch. I've got it broken out by starting and relieving.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, because B-Ref splits it out. So first, this is as a starter. That's why I was like, your numbers didn't line up, but I think you were.
Well, it was from not including yesterday's game.
Oh, okay. This includes yesterday. Yeah. So this is as a starting pitcher. First time through the order. 200, 238, 267. So that's a 505 OPS. 22 strikeouts to 2 walks, 63 plate appearances. Second time through the order, 264, 310, 321 for a 631 OPS. So a little bit, hitter's doing a little bit better. 18 strikeouts to 4 walks. He's faced 8, he had 8 plate appearances facing a guy a third time in a game. Okay? It's not even third time through the order. Like if there was a pinch hitter, this wouldn't count. Third time in a game facing a guy, right? In those 8 plate appearances, 5 hits, including a double and a home run, no walks, 1 strikeout. So 7 of the guys
1125. Or sorry.
Yeah, 1125
1750
slugging,
OPS.
1750 OPS. Yeah. Like it's 9 total bases and 8 plate appearances. And again, only one of them didn't put the ball in play. Like, and that's, I think the other day he faced 3 batters when he went 3 batters in the 6th.
Yeah, it was against the Rays.
They got
hits. Doubles, home run, single, taken out.
Yeah, and that's why Cora is not going to let him do that again.
No, and I think also it's interesting. This is the other one, is looking at his pitch count efficiency. From 1 to 25 pitches, 174, 208, 261, 469 OPS, excellent. 14 strikeouts, 1 walk. 26 to 50 pitches, 220, 234, 454 OPS. So 2 walks, 20 strikeouts. Pitches 51 to 75, 367, 441, 433, 875 OPS. Pitches 76 to 100, 455, 455, 818, 1273 OPS. After 50 pitches, his stuff just decreases and he just becomes a lot more hittable. And that's why, if you want to, we've been talking about for this year, if you want to be him to be used the most effectively, it would be as a bulk reliever pitching 2 to 3 innings, staying under 50 pitches and pitching that role, because you can look at it however you break down the numbers. His stuff, he gets hit the deeper he works in the game. And I think that just when it's something where you have the scouting says one thing, and then you also have the manager and the way they're using him illustrating the same point. I think that shows that they clearly do not view him at this point as a true starting pitcher, quote unquote. He's going to start games, I think, for the rest of the season, it seems. But right now he's got the gloves on and they're using him very limitedly because they don't want to expose him and have him get hit hard, the deeper he works in the games.
Yeah. And that's probably worth mentioning too. There's been a lot of discussion about the fact that the Red Sox are using these doubleheaders to option Houck, bring him up as the 27th man and send him back down in a way that, like, they just did it. They sent him down for 10, and it is 10 days. I thought it was 15, but apparently they got rid of that for this season. So my bad for not realizing that. But you could send him down for 10 days, and they're not even missing a start because of off days and the fact they've got the doubleheader. So, look, for him, does it stink? Yeah. And I got called out by Lou Merloni, of all people, on Twitter, who likes to just quote tweet and kind of flame people, frankly, on Twitter for saying he probably doesn't care. That was probably wrong. He was probably right to call me out on that. He probably does care. But when you look at it, it's not like the Red Sox are saving money, right? Like, they've got 26 guys on the roster. It's just that it's not Houck getting the money. And so I'm sure Houck doesn't like the fact that he's losing out on that cash. I mean, he's probably, this recent auction, I think I calculated it cost him about $27,000. That's not great. And maybe not $27,000. I'm sure it's probably less than that, but we're talking 5 figures most likely. That's not good. But you look, the problem isn't the Red Sox. The problem is what the system incentivizes them to do in order to get an extra guy on the roster for 9 out of 10, or I guess all 10 days. So suboptimal, sure, but I just, it's not the Red Sox being unfair to Tanner Houck. It's the fact that the system allows them to do this, and they'd be nuts not to. They'd be nuts not to, because there's 29 other teams that would and probably are doing the same thing. So, it is what it is. All right, well, now it is time for checking levels.
Word, let me check these levels. Okay, this should be cool now. Turn it up, let me check it out.
This is our semi-regular segment in which we go level by level through the system. Talk about one thing that's popping out to us at each level. We're not going to do what we've done before when there were only 4 teams picking a hitter and a pitcher. We're just going to go through and pick a story or an idea, or it could be a player, one thing at each level that we want to talk about. And Ian, you want to start high or low? We're just in the majors. You want to just go to AAA?
Sure.
Just work our way downwards. All right. Well,
Yeah, that works.
Going to AAA, let me start, and I'll let you start on Portland. The thing that stands out to me, really, we've got Jairo Munoz's hit streak finally came to an end at 35, I think, or 36. 35. We've talked about some of the relief pitchers who've had pretty decent seasons, Caleb Ort, Jose Adames. The fact of the matter is, looking at it, we were talking about this before we started recording, none of those guys are coming up.
Nope.
None
they don't
of them
have
are
room on
coming
the
up.
40-man to add anyone.
They just don't. As it is, the Red Sox will need to add Ryan Brazier to the 40-man. They're going to be, sending guys down. They've had to add Travis Shaw. They've had to add, Chris Sale. They're going to have to add Edward Bizardo before the end of the year because he's on a rehab assignment, unless they, recall him from it without activating him, which I guess is a possibility.
And I think those are your bullpen additions. It's going to be Brazier and Bizardo.
Right.
Those are the two guys who are going to help.
I got asked the other day on a radio hit, which is, a common question, who in AAA could come up soon? And I just said, look, I'll give you guys who in theory could, but none of them are, because the September roster expansion is only to 28 now. You're not expanding it to 40. So just look, if they were expanding it to 40, Connor Siebold comes up and probably gets a few innings out of the bullpen because, hey, why the hell not? But just look, I don't see it happening. And now that Travis Shaw is there, you mentioned Danny Santana. I think the Travis Shaw acquisition, unless he's an absolute disaster, blocks Munoz, because I just can't see the two of them sharing the roster. Granted, Munoz can play outfield and shortstop, which Shaw definitely can't. But I'm curious. Right now, they've got a 4-man bench for the longest period they have all year. I wonder how long they're going to keep that. We've got Jonathan Aruz up. Is he the guy that goes to AAA when they activate Brazier? Potentially, I think that's potentially the move if Brazier's coming up soon. I think it's going to be boring guys like Connor Wong and Phillips Valdez and Yaxel Rios who are going to be in consideration in September, and that's really what kind of stands out to me. Dark horses, sure. Delino DeShields, maybe. Maybe he plays his way into coming up. I don't know what the move is at that point. Maybe it's you. I think the only way DeShields comes up, Ian, is if you're going to option Duran and DFA, one of the guys we're probably about to talk about in AA. But otherwise, I just don't see it happening without rosters expanding to 40. Don't know if there's anything else in AAA Pawtucket that you've seen. Do you want to just do one story and each pick one, or do you want to each do a story at each level?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have a lot to add on what you called it Pawtucket, by the way. It's Worcester.
Oh gosh, it's Worcester. It's all right.
I just think that, I think the interesting thing for me to watch in Worcester for the rest of the season is going to be the performance of Cutter Crawford, because I think he's someone who's pitching for a 40-man spot in the offseason right now. Absolutely. And I think that, he can, I would say right now he's on the right side of the bubble, but I do think how he looks the rest of the season could determine, which way that goes in the offseason. So that's going to be interesting to watch for me.
What do you got in Portland?
Portland, I think there's kind of two major storylines. The first one is Chris Murphy. He had an excellent start yesterday, and I'll jump on that one to start, and then you can take the other one. Yep. But and I guess you can kind of lump the hitters. There's a few storylines, I guess, that we should actually touch on. But just with Murphy,
well, let's with the hitters. If it's what I think you're going to talk about, let's lump it in Greenville, because I think that's one. Is it? The
I guess, and then yes, that one. But there's also the 40-man guys, and then the other one is Tristan Casas is raked since he came back, and I guess you can lump that in with Murphy since it's kind of the new old arrivals in Casas's case. But with Murphy, he since his promotion, he's been really good. Yesterday, in his last start, 7 innings, 1 hit, 0 runs, 1 walk, 7 Ks, retired 20 straight after allowing a walk and a single with 1 out in the first. His velocity yesterday was mostly he was up to the mid 90s. He sits in the low 90s usually, kind of what we heard too from his previous starts. Like he's up to 97, 98 on occasion, but that's really just in a short burst. But I think he's someone that it's still a debate about starter or reliever, and a lot of scouts I talk to fall on the reliever side. But there's good stuff that it could be a solid reliever. But if he can improve that command, and that's the big thing, it's 20 home runs and 15 starts this year, which is just not going to cut it. You can't have that home run rate. there's a chance that he could be potentially a back-end guy, and I think his development is important for the system because it gives them another high minors arm to go along with, guys like Bayo, Winkowski, Connor Siebold as guys who could be pretty close to the big leagues. And then Costas is there's not a lot to say on him other than he's come back and he's raking. He's not striking out still, which is it's beautiful to see. He's got like 4 strikeouts and 30 plate appearances since he came back. He's hitting over 300. Had, I think, 3 hits yesterday, including a triple. He's slugging, he hasn't hit a home run, but he's hitting a lot of extra base hits. Doubles and triples are coming. So I think Costas could be in for a really strong end to the year and get some momentum going towards the offseason, where I wouldn't be surprised if he got sent to the Arizona Fall League either.
Yeah.
Given how much time he missed
we
with
talked about that last
USA.
episode. Yeah. I mean, to answer the question that we're going to get, I no chance he's in Boston this year. Do you think there's any chance he goes up to Worcester? I don't think so. I mean, he could. I just don't know whether they will.
I think he will, because I'm pretty sure I think the Portland season ends before the Worcester season, and if they don't make the playoffs, I think that he might go up there to finish it out in Worcester.
Aren't they? They might make the playoffs, right?
Yeah, they might, because it's weird. It's the weird standings thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that will determine it, but I think I could see him in Worcester eventually. For it wouldn't be for long; it'd be for a couple weeks, but potentially.
And then
do you want to talk about?
Yeah, the other thing that we had talked about is there's, and I'll throw Ronaldo Hernandez in there too. Is there's 3 guys on the 40-man in Portland, and catcher Ronaldo Hernandez, third baseman Hudson Potts, and center fielder Jason Rosario. None of them, if you look at their season numbers, are really playing well enough to make you happy that they have those 40-man spots and are taking those up from guys who could be helping at the major league level. I think Hernandez is in a little bit of a different group. On the season, he's hitting just 243, 287, 438. He's got 11 home runs. The power has been as advertised. He's got pop. We've talked about the defensive limitations, but he has hit better as of late. In August, he's actually not been great again. 222 average, 265 on base. 378.
It was in July.
slugging.
He was insane.
Yeah, in July he was great. And granted, in August it's only a 250 on base. In July he was 324, 378, 588 with 6 doubles and 4 bombs. Had a very good month in 21 games played. The strikeout rate is low, which is nice to see. It's not like he's up there hacking away and whiffing. I think he's. I mean,
his problem is though he's too aggressive. Like, his strikeout rate is low because he gets himself out on really bad pitches a lot of the time.
That he makes.
He has good contact skills, but yeah, exactly. But I think he's safe. You were going to say it because he's a catcher.
He's safe. He's a catcher. There's much lower bar. I think. Who knows? I mean, we thought David Grione was safe, and then we come to find out no, it looked really bad at the alt site. The 2 guys though, I mean, Jason Rosario and Hudson Potts. Again, this is for the season. Rosario's hitting 237 with a 335 on base and a 303 slugging. He's got the dreaded slugging below on base percentage thing going on. Potts is hitting 200, 250, 379. Potts, he's got 9 home runs in 54 games after missing most of the start of the year with an injury. But just, man. I mean,
Potts' K rate is like 37% too.
Yeah. On the year, it's 37 even. Recently, in August,
5% walk rate.
In August, he struck out 25 times in 54 at bats without walking. So it's 54 plate appearances. He's got a K rate of 46% in August, Ian.
That's really bad.
He's hitting 204 with a 333 on base, and he's got 3 doubles and 2 bombs. It's almost like, it's almost Dahlbeck-esque in that when he hits it, it goes a long way. It's just that he hits the ball a lot less than Dahlbeck does. In July, he hit 198. 4 doubles, 4 bombs, but a K rate of 31%. I just, when we were doing our rankings in August, we talked about this. I just didn't know where to put him because I'm looking at all these guys we've got ranked behind him, and I'm just like, I would take all of these guys over Hudson Potts right now. Looking at Rosario, it's only a 27% K rate. And yeah, he's walking, but it's like.
But that's not good because his whole thing is contact was supposed to be his game.
It's bad walks. He walks a lot. Great. In August he's got a 29. The K rate's up to 29%. It's a 362 on base in August with a 390 slugging, but 268 average. It's just when that's your good month.
It's just his profile just doesn't. It doesn't. He doesn't have his best tools are his defense, but he can't really hit. He's got no power. He's not fast.
And I think
Like,
the defense
that's
will be what
yeah.
saves him if he stays on the 40 man. You know, it's the fact that he's got the defense, because someone on I think it was the forum the other day said, like, between the two, I'll take Potts' power as the best tool. And I was like, well, Potts' power might be the best tool between the two of them. Rosario doesn't need to hit to play good defense. Potts needs to hit to get to the power.
Well, exactly. Is he's with the way his hit tool projects, that power's never going to actualize against more advanced pitching. I mean, he's struggling with AA pitching right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that both of them are playing for their 40-man roster spots in the offseason. And another thing that I'll give, Rosario is almost more than a year younger than Potts, actually. Oh no, he's a year younger than Potts, exactly. They both turn 20. Their birthdays are both at the end of October.
And they're both not old for the level either, we should mention.
No, definitely not. But it's just, it's just neither of them really look like MLB players for the Red Sox. And I just think that's the area you go through, because it's going to come down to, if they need to make a 40-man move, it's those two, Phillips, Valdez, and Yaxel Rios, and then Danny Santana, obviously. And I think we both agreed that Santana seems the most likely. But after that, it's a fair question. Would you rather have a guy like Rios or Valdez who can at least give you semi-decent major league innings, or would you take these guys who the odds of them being a solid MLB player for your team are really low?
And it's questions like this that really make me hope that in the next CBA they expand it to a 42-man reserve list. Because when you expanded the active roster to 26, you didn't correspondingly expand the reserve list, which you have to use to do things like protect guys from Rule 5. And so you have to do things like DFA Hudson Potts or Jason Rosario, which is not optimal for the player or the team necessarily. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, that's what really stands out to me on that roster. Moving down to Greenville, Ian. This is more like you said. It's a joint Greenville-Portland thing. There is a list of guys who came into the year maybe on the radar for the top 60, but not on the top 60. By the way, I just realized we never mentioned the site redesign. Go to SoxProspects.com. We redesigned the site and launched our new homepage today, as well as new transactions and roster pages. Mike is just a madman today getting on all this. But, I mean, the list of guys that are at those two levels now, when you have players like Devlin Granberg, players like, I don't know that I would put Kramer and Cannon in this group because he was in the top 60, but you look at a Joe Davis in Greenville, a Steven Scott in Greenville, a Tyler Dearden in Greenville. Guys who just really weren't on the radar and just have hit the entire year. Tyreek Reed is another one, although he's slowed down to a pretty good degree in Portland. He's hitting, I guess he's been okay in Portland, 274, 364, 464. I'll take that from Reed in Portland and his first taste of the level. But you look at Granberg, promoted 47 games ago to Portland. He's hitting 298, 324, 506. With 8 bombs and 11 doubles, again, in 47 games. Maybe even throw Johan Mieses into that group, too. He's an older guy, but, was just mashing in Portland and doesn't really have a sample size in Worcester, though he's hit home runs there. Then you go down to Greenville and look what guys are doing there. You look at Joe Davis, who at that level, if I can get the stupid thing to load, I think for the season, I think he leads the system in either doubles or home runs. Yeah, okay.
He has 17 home runs on the year. Since he's promoted, he's 293, 298, 565.
Yeah,
but he doesn't strike out. It's like a 12% K rate since he's promoted.
It's
so
just,
even though he's not walking, he's not striking out. Yeah.
And then you look at like Steven Scott in 14 games at Greenville has been just torrid. In 14 games, he has 8 doubles and 5 home runs. So he's got 13 extra base hits in 14 games. 418, 484, 836 slugging for Steven Scott.
It's pretty clear what's happening here. Do you know what it is?
No. Is it the
power
meatballs?
Of the meatball?
Yeah, the power of the meatball.
Power of the meatball.
That's true.
Yeah, it's the only thing that makes sense. If the meatballs are together, they get meatballs to hit. So that's my.
But it's just it makes it Dearden. Let me just mention Dearden too. In 73 games, he's hitting 261, 385, 529 with 18 doubles and 17 bombs.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, 35 extra base hits. That's crazy for someone who's never stayed healthy. I mean, this is his most games played in his career already.
Yeah.
In a season.
And he actually had spent time injured. I don't know if he went on the IL, but he's been injured this year. So, but luckily it was a short stint. I mean, these are all guys who are hitting at relatively age-appropriate levels. And I think this year, I don't really want to ding guys too much for age appropriateness. When it's like they're 2 or 3 years older, then fine. But it's like, look, everybody lost a year last year. And some of these guys, like, they're not going to have them skip Salem, right? I think that a lot of these guys, look, I'm still not necessarily going to be all in on Steven Scott unless he, A, does this over a much larger sample size in Greenville, and B, starts next year in Portland and continues to do the same thing. Joe Davis next year kind of has to start in Portland for me to care a whole lot, more than I do. I mean, I love Big Joe. Don't get me wrong. My love for him must be in question. But, just to have these guys stand out as prospects. I mean, you've got Davis and Reed are first base only guys. Scott is a first base corner outfield, can catch on occasion guy. Dearden is left field only. Who else is there? Granberg is first base corner outfield. Although, as you mentioned, he apparently played a little bit of center field this week.
He's a first baseman.
Yeah, it's
Tyreek Reed's a first baseman, even though he's playing corner outfield. But I think it shows that the Red Sox know they have too many of these guys, and that's why they're trying to get them to another position. Because if any of them can play that other position, it increases their viability so much.
I mean, and maybe throw Pedro Castellanos in there. I mean, maybe
I was about to say that.
Yeah, 283, 360, 452 on the year with 12 doubles, 2 triples. Love to see that guy legging out triples, and 11 home runs in 78 games. It's just this group of guys. My point is just that I don't know what to do with them right now in this weird 2021 season. I don't know what they're doing, defensively. I don't know how to take this season. I can't wait to get back to normal. And next year, I hope that they continue to hit and prove me wrong. Like, that's the thing. When we're potentially quote unquote low on guys, we're not hoping they're going to do poorly. It's nice to be wrong in that direction. But
and I also think you have to remember that we're evaluating them from the complete package as a player. It's not, we can't just look at their stats or their hitting ability. In the minors, we're thinking about how is their hitting ability going to translate against major league pitching, and how is their defensive ability and base running going to translate against major league pitching. And fortunately, a lot of those guys you listed just don't project to add any defensive value or very little, which means that, or they're first base only. When you're first base only, it's a different story. It's just the bar there is crazy high. But regardless, if they're limited defensively and base running, you have to mash. And we've seen it work. And I think it's interesting, like, the Rays have gotten value out of these guys. Someone like G-Man Choi comes to mind. G-Man Choi is not a good defender, can't really run, but he can hit right-handed pitching, and the Rays have made him into a viable player. Yandy Diaz is similar, He can at least fake it at third base, but he's a corner guy who can hit a little bit, hit lefties, and he's made a big league career out of it. Like, I do wonder if I had to guess, I would guess at least one of these guys is going to make it up to the big league level and develop into at least a usable player. But it's hard to differentiate them when, there's just so many of them, and their tools, it's just no one really has that standout tool or standout, thing that makes you that pushes them higher up the list. And that's why it's kind of like a hedge that they're all in that same, 50 to 75 range in the system.
And the one more thing that I'll throw in is the effect, and it kills me. We've talked about this. It kills me that no one is mentioning this in kind of the national level. The effect of only playing 5 teams on a rotation for 6-game series. If 2 or 3 of those teams have terrible pitching staffs and you mash against those teams, your season numbers are going to look great. And I'm not saying that I think that's the situation with one or more of these guys. I'm saying, like, I think over the offseason, that's what we're going to have to do, is go with like a team-by-team split.
Yeah.
Because it's like looking at, for example, Double-A. Portland's division, we've talked about this before, has one other good team in Somerset, the Yankees Double-A affiliate.
And that team is, that
team's loaded.
That team is insanely good.
Yeah.
Like, they have, I would say, like, double-digit potential MLB players on it. It's
great,
crazy.
Yeah, that's a great team. The other 3 teams in their division stink. They're not good. And so it's like, are those players, or is it like, do those teams look like they stink because they're playing Portland and Somerset? it's kind of a chicken egg thing. Were they bad, or are they just not as good as these teams and they're getting beat up?
Well, exactly, because like I've seen New Hampshire, and New Hampshire's actually decent. Like, and same with Binghamton is much better now than it was at the beginning of the year because they've got a bunch of guys promoted. Like Brett Beatty's there now, several other guys are. So yeah, it is a problem, and I think the best example I've heard of is like the FCL, the Orioles Orange team, and the Twins are just awful. Like just horrifically bad teams. The Orioles are 7-22 and the Twins are 10-22. And the Orioles have given up 223 runs in 29 games. They're averaging like 8 runs allowed per game. Their pitching staff is just atrocious. And that's one of the teams the Red Sox are playing a ton. And so that's why like with FCL numbers,
somehow
especially,
only 7.68 runs per game or 6.9 runs per game. I thought it sounds like it should be much more.
But yeah, I rounded up to 8. But yeah, like those that's going to really heavily skew the FCL numbers for some. So we'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, but what do you have for Greenville, Ian? I know that went much longer. We should probably pick up the pace a little bit. You don't have
sorry.
anything for,
I was just going to say, just Jay Groom is pitching really well again. He had 6 innings, 1 hit tonight. And it's just, just checking in on him again. It's good to see him staying healthy and continuing to pitch well. And similarly, another one is Brandon Walters, another guy that's going to be tough to figure out what to do with him in the offseason because the reports from scouts are definitely promising, and his stuff is definitely improved from what it was in the offseason. But at the same time, it's a 25-year-old or 24-year-old, I guess, who was doing it against Salem. So we'll see what happens in the future with him.
Well, in Salem, yeah, he was old for the level. And then, but he's gone up to Greenville and pitched well there too. A bunch of those pitchers have actually had good stretches. Walter, Van Bell, even Shugart has pitched better as of late. So, yeah. Going down to Salem, Ian, anything stand out to you that you want to mention? Kind of lightning round wise?
I would just say that Nick York and Gilberto Jimenez are just both hitting really well again, and it's fun to watch, especially with Nick York. He had, like a 30 or 25 game hit streak or something that I think recently came to an end. And then again tonight, he had 3 more hits tonight. Jimenez had a couple triples tonight. I think he had 3 hits also. And so it's going to be fun watching them kind of battle it out to see who's going to end up with the higher batting average for the season. Because I think York's at like 312 right now, and Jimenez is 309 or something. Mm-hmm. And so it's just interesting too, though, to me, how they're getting there in different ways. York is getting there now by driving the ball. Like he's hitting home runs. Yeah, he had a 3-game hitless streak and he had 2 more hits tonight, including another home run, I should add, tonight. Oh no, that was yesterday. Sorry. He didn't have a home run tonight. But whereas Jimenez is mostly like, it's singles, but he's hitting the occasional double and triple. So I think the two of them is just at the top of the order is a pretty dynamic duo for the Red Sox, and it's fun seeing them both be successful.
Yeah, my thing for Salem, Ian, I went to see them this past weekend for a doubleheader in Fredericksburg. Unfortunately, I was only able to make the one day, and the weather was not cooperating. We had a long rain delay in the first game. The second game didn't start until almost 8 o'clock. And around the third inning, it was starting to rain again, so I just got the heck out of there because it's like a 90-minute drive for me. And I had just gotten off of a business trip that had been extended because of travel issues. But just looking really quickly, some reports on some of the guys I saw, I guess starting with the starting pitching. In Game 1, Shane Drohan did not get out of the first inning. He threw 31 pitches, 17 for strikes. They basically got him out once he hit that 30-pitch limit. He saw the lineup once. The fastball was 89 to 91. Big bending curveball that I think was my favorite pitch that he threw. Was roughly like 74 to 76. And then he had a changeup that he threw on occasion that was roughly 83, 84 miles per hour. It's an athletic body. I think he just had a bad outing. It was pretty humid and muggy. Like if you were to tell me his stuff was down because he was just kind of laboring in the heat, I would believe you. To be fair, and this generally went throughout the game, Ian, Salem's defense really did not do the pitching any favors. There were a couple of balls hit to Gilberto Jimenez in right field that I'm not going to say he should have caught them. I was just surprised he did not try harder to catch them. Again, I still don't know if he's hurt or what. Well, at least a strong throw on one of them. I mean, the arm is still great, but again, just given his speed, I thought he was going to get to at least one, if not both of these things, and he didn't get to either of them and played them both on, on hops. So, didn't really help him there. Again, he had, a couple of walks, just didn't really have it, Drohan, so they got him out of there. He did have one swinging strikeout on his curve. Got a couple of swinging strikes on the curveball, one on the fastball. Fastball did look like it had a little bit of ride to it, but again, at 89 to 91, not really as my alarm tells me to take the dog out, not really the velo you're looking for there. The other starter I saw was Bradley Blaylock. I only caught his first 2 innings. I guess he did go longer than that, but the fastball was, mostly 91 to 93, a couple at 94, a couple at 95. Threw a slider about 84 to 86, a curveball that was more 78 to 80. They were a little bit different. He didn't really have his command. In the first inning, he had a couple of walks before getting a strikeout looking on a curveball and a strikeout swinging on a curveball. He also got swinging strikes on a slider and a fastball that inning. In the second inning, started single to right, single to center. 4.63 DP where Matthew Lugo showed a pretty good arm. Again, single up the middle. Walk, single, walk, 4-3 to get out of it. Not really a lot of hard contact. It certainly wasn't, it wasn't loud contact. It was kind of hard up the middle, through the infield, base hit to right or center type contact. It was okay. The stuff was probably more intriguing, but the command was not. The command was not necessarily there. In the first inning, it was 24 pitches, 13 strikes. I didn't count up the second inning, but again, he had a couple more walks in the second inning. So four walks in 2 innings isn't going to get it done. Was a little bit wild. Also saw Jordan D Valerio, same stuff as before. Stuff was down a little bit. The fastball was only 86 to 88, curveball 76 to 79. That he really kind of pitched backwards a little bit off of the curveball at times. Change up anywhere from 81 to 85. He was the one that really liked the infield. It was Anthony Flores at third, Lugo at short, Nick York at second, and Nick Northcutt at first. And Flores and Northcutt did not show range that was all that great on a couple balls that got by them. There was also a ground ball, a line drive to Flores at third that he let fall and threw to second, and it wasn't clear whether it was a bad throw and or that York just kind of didn't get it. It was very weird. Like I said, a ball got by Northcutt at first base that he probably should have stopped, and then the loud contact came. And it was the first game I saw, I should mention, the first game I saw, Salem lost 12-0 and was no hit. And in the second game, they were, I think, down in the second inning or third inning when I left. So it was actually, the second inning. So, not a great outing from them. The other two pitchers I saw, Nate Tellier, 89 to 92, touching 93. A lot of recoil. He lost his velocity fast. He was in the higher end of that range early, and then it was more 89 to 91 near the end of his inning. Tight, sharp 11 to 5 curve that was 74 to 75 miles per hour, change up around 84. Like the curveball, but the fastball just lost so much velocity so quickly. I mean, he's going to be a 1-inning reliever. Yasel Santana, a guy that you saw in Lowell, Ian, a lot of effort in the delivery. He was 91 to 94, touching 95. Slider 83 to 86 that he threw, on occasion. He's almost all fastballs, though. He threw one split that I noticed. But he was almost exclusively fastball. And for the hitters, not a lot to write home about, because I think I didn't see a hit in the first game, and I may have seen a couple in the second. I think Nick York walked. Nick York was working good at bats. Gilberto Jimenez's timing looked off, but again, it might have just been the day. The energy level at this time of year, it's tough. You start to see it kind of ebb and flow a little bit with some guys. And I think that's what I was seeing. Talking with a reader of the site who had been at the games all week, he said he was seeing the same thing. Just the energy level wasn't what it was in earlier series. So that was kind of, tough to see, but not a whole lot to say about the lineup. In a game where they got no hit, no one hit the ball, and there weren't really many balls put in play. But it was also kind of weird with the with the rain delay, it just felt like a very strange no-hitter. It was a combined no-hitter. It wasn't one pitcher, obviously. And I was sitting next to the parent of the Fredericksburg pitcher who finished the game. And until I told her, she had no idea that it was a no-hitter, that her son was about to finish. And then when the game ended, like, the guys were clearly happy, but they were just kind of high-fiving. There was no jumping up and down. It was just kind of big smiles and high-fiving, which was very strange for my first no-hitter to see in person. So, yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to write home about with the hitters, but, it is what it is. It's an intriguing team if you see that team come through. I still like York a lot at the plate. Defensively, he's just not a natural fluid fielder. He's not a butcher. He will make the plays he needs to make. He made one nice diving stop, but it was just one of those things where he made the diving stop and then it took so long for him to get up, he couldn't get the guy. So, it was, as my dog itches in the background, if you can hear that, sorry. But, Lugo defensively, like I said, it's a good arm. He trusts it, but it's not the most natural set of hands and instincts and flow. Like I said,
he's got like 30 errors or something this year.
He's got a ton of errors, yeah. And part of it's weird because if he knows, he trusts his arm. If he knows he doesn't need to unleash it, he won't. And I wonder if part of that is him just being gun shy. Maybe he's thrown a couple two-seamers that got by the first baseman, especially since Joe Davis got called up.
I would be interested to see the breakdown of like throwing versus actual field.
I think I did it recently, and it was like split. It was split pretty evenly. But even if it's split pretty evenly, if he's got 15 throwing errors on the year, like, I could see why he doesn't want to uncork one if he doesn't think the first baseman's going to catch it, So, he was good. Like I said, Jimenez showed off a great arm. Like I said, I still think he might be dinged up or the effort level was not there from him in the field in a couple of the plays I saw. But like I said, maybe he's being ginger on a wheel or a back, or who knows what his issue is. So, and I should mention that with York too. I mean, he's been battling a back thing all year. That could be part of why his motions were a little bit slow out there. So, yeah, but that was Salem. Good team to go see if they're in your neck of the woods. Go check them out. And then let's just combine rookie ball, Ian, with the Florida Complex League and the Dominican Summer League. I don't know that there's really... I don't know that I yet see storylines there. I think it's tough to take much of it. The teams are good. They're hitting, especially like the DSL guys. They've got a number of players who are hitting really well. Miguel Blaze, I think, is kind of starting to show why he stands out now that he's playing again. He's got great numbers.
Yeah.
He's playing real well.
Reports on him.
You got him? Yeah. Do you have his numbers up, or should I pull them up?
I have them.
Okay.
He's like, 1 second. He is, for the year, he only has like 27 at bats, but he's 333, 400, 556 with a home run and 3 doubles, 3 stolen bases, and 4 strikeouts in 27 at bats and 2 walks.
And that's with a bad, quote unquote, bad game today, because entering today he was at 391.
Yeah, I think he was 0 for 4 with 2 strikouts today.
Yeah, he was at 391 within a 1.14. 1.114.
But yeah. Today. I think I tweeted it, but one scout told me he's the real deal, and that's an exciting player, right? And he's by far the best prospect down there. And they have a couple other good ones, like Endurso Lear's interesting. John Frank Salazar has been good. I think just the one I'm going to do is this is kind of a blanket statement regarding all debutants and the draft picks. Don't look at the numbers. Like, I had a lot of people tweeting me about Marcelo Meyer because he had 3 errors today. No, there were 3 errors yesterday. It's not a big deal. Like, just don't worry about it. This is, these guys, he's coming off of his season ended early. He's been off for a couple months, and now he's playing in pro ball. That's a huge jump from high school ball in California, even if California high school ball is pretty solid. So I would not read too much into individual game-to-game statistics at the FCL or DSL level.
Yeah, and I guess, really, and now that I think about it, the one thing that stands out to me with the Dominican Summer League and Florida Complex Leagues this year are the number of games that have gotten banged. Like, they are losing games left and right because of rain, and I think it's really...
It's a problem that Florida and the DSL are going to have, and Florida, though, compared to Arizona, like, it's stark. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to get worse, unfortunately, as climate change becomes more of a problem.
I mean, look, I think this year has really shown, too, like, they'll call a game in the morning when it's like a noon start because they just don't want to send the guys on a bus to have the game get rained out. It's very different than like the affiliates. It's always been that way, but I think it's even more stark now where, they will just completely mess with the schedule. They've called games like, granted, it was when like the tropical depression or whatever it was at that point, the one that was named after the frozen girl, Elsa. When that one went through Florida, like they called the game the day before, and it wasn't even that bad of a storm at that point, but they were just like, why even bother? Some of the starters are missing missing consecutive starts because their games keep getting rained out because they're only playing 5 times a week. So, those levels, take the stats with an enormous grain of salt. I think that's really the takeaway at those levels. And, look, you might see a guy, whose numbers don't stand out to you, like Anderso Lira is only hitting 237 with the dreaded slugging below on base at that level in 19 games. He's going to be one of the guys potentially that comes up for instructs, even with those numbers.
100%, because he can catch. And I think this is something that a scout who saw him recently mentioned to me is like, he's too advanced an approach for his own good at that level because the pitching is so bad and so erratic, and he just doesn't swing. And he has 10 walks this year and 7 strikeouts. And it does himself a disservice that he's so patient. And that's part of why he was like, don't be surprised if this guy doesn't hit, that his numbers on the field don't look that good until he gets stateside, because the pitching he's facing he's just far too advanced for it.
Yeah, so we'll see. Again, I think it really is telling what guys get invited to fall instructs and to minor league spring training next spring. Those are the guys, because people keep asking, who should I look out for in the DSL? It's like, well, it's not like the games are televised. Like, just kind of let it happen is usually my response.
Or you could, in a couple over the next week or two, there will be some articles coming about the DSL prospects that have been intriguing. Fair. So you could also read those.
That's a good point.
There are reports coming out of the DSL that I'm getting. So so we'll have some more names to keep an eye out for in the DSL over the coming weeks.
All right. Should we do some emails and get out of here, Ian? Again, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. Our first email comes from Mark. He says, hey, guys, with Cameron Cannon's rumored promotion to Portland, which at the time was still rumored, was wondering what your thoughts are on his progression during his time in the system. Just from the stat line, it seems like he is turning into some version of the player we had hoped he would become on draft day. But obviously there is more to the story than just that. He debuted top 15 on your list in 2019 and just snuck back into the top 30, granted in a much stronger system now. How would you compare him as a player now to what you expected in 2019? Thanks. Huge fan of the show and website. Ian, I'm going to let you take most of this because you've seen Cannon much more than me. But 2 things that I want to add. First of all, the quote-unquote drop in the rankings. There are probably about 25 guys who got added to the system ahead of him between like last year's draft, guys acquired last year, like 2 different Rule 5 picks, guys in this year's draft. Like, a lot of guys fell 15 spots when they hadn't played at all just from the number of guys getting acquired. The one thing, just to kind of something to maybe consider throwing in when you talk about him is, I think people, because Cannon was the first pick for the Red Sox in the 2019 draft, people forget that he was a second-round pick. And so people are putting first-round expectations on him as a second-round player, which I think it's fair now to say he's kind of living up to second-round expectations, but I think we've got unfair expectations for him.
I agree. I think the better way to look at it is just the bonus. He got, what did he get? 1.3, I think. Yeah. He got a $1.3 million bonus. So, to put that into perspective, that's less than Blaze Jordan got in the 3rd round last year.
Which is slightly different thing, but
no, I know it's different, but it's only, $300K more than Nathan Hickey got in the 5th round this year.
Yes.
It's not a massive bonus or anything. It was well under slot. And so I think with Cannon that he's hitting, which is good. That was the key for him. He was terrible in Lowell. I saw him, probably 20, 25 games in Lowell that year, and it was really bad. And it was obviously, as we learned after the fact, they were tweaking his swing mechanics, and it just didn't take at all. And he's gone back to his old mechanics, and he's obviously hitting really well this year. He struggled a bit since his promotion, but, that's fine. But with Cannon, it's nice that he's hitting definitely, and the strikeout rate's manageable, but he's still very aggressive. He doesn't walk really. And it's just the defense is going to be the issue for him. I think his hit tool is decent enough, I think it's good enough to, maybe play as like average at the big league level, but I don't think the power is that. It's below average power at best to me. And then defensively, I'm not sure he's a second baseman. The scouts I'm talking to aren't sure either. And, with his bat, he has to be able to play up the middle. So that's going to be the key for him, is he's got to be able to stick at second base and be at least, solid average there for it to play, because, most likely he's going on the path towards, like, it looks like more of a utility player than an everyday guy. But if if you have a utility player bat with limited defensive versatility and kind of a below average defensive projection at second base, then that's a problem. So we'll kind of have to see with him how the defense develops. I think that's kind of the next aspect of his game, and then also where the power goes.
Mm-hmm. Our next email comes from Harry. He says, "Hi, Chris and Ian. Longtime listener, and I love your site and all the work you put in. I have This is the email I was thinking about. I have a question about the DSL. How do you guys get updates on the players in the DSL, and how do I know which players to be excited for and to keep an eye on? I know the big signings are the usual guys to be curious on, but small signing players have turned into some of the most interesting prospects recently, a la Brian Mata, Darwinzon Hernandez, Gilberto Jimenez. I've been following the DSL a lot and have been excited over a few players, especially Miguel Blaze, John Frank Salazar, Jedickson Paez, and Lionel James. But only Blaze went up in the rankings in the August update. I think he means from that group. How do you know what players are actually playing well and what players are illusions by the stats? And when do the stats become reality and we should get more invested in the player? Thanks for all the work you put in, Harry." Great email, Harry. Great questions. I think we talked about that a little. I mean, look, like we said, I think part of it is when they come stateside, right, Ian? And
Mm-hmm.
I think what it is you need to see those players in the context of, outside of that Dominican Summer League context. Because
you need to. Yeah. It's a lot easier when you can compare them to players that you have seen either, Ed Strux, who played in Lowell, or, stateside players who have faced better pitching, or when they get exposed to that, the college draftees at the fall instructional league, or the high school guys who got big money. That's kind of the first big test. And as you said, you can kind of get an idea of who the organization is most interested or intrigued by who is on that fall instructional league roster and who comes stateside next year for minor league spring training.
Exactly.
And then as for how we get updates, it's the same thing as getting updates as the other affiliates. It's if a scout we know or someone we talk to has seen the games, then we'll get updates. And if not, the DSL actually is the most challenging, obviously, to get the updates on. It's just this year we happen to have had or just know some people who have been down there. So that's where I'm getting my information this year.
And I would also add, go listen to our interview with Eddie Romero back on episode 201, I believe. It was 201 or 202. He talked about a lot of these guys and had, effusive praise for Blaze and some other guys that kind of put them on our radar. So go check out that episode of the podcast. I'm sure you'll like it. Thanks for the email. Our next question comes from friend of the show and Patreon supporter, Aaron. He says, "Hi guys, I have a logistical question on Noah Song. Is he racking up minor league service time right now? That is to say, if he comes back next year, would he need to be added to the 40-man in the near future? Or does his clock start like he's a new addition?" That's a great question, Aaron, and I actually talked about it with Mike Andrews, our editor-in-chief. We both came to the same conclusion that Song's Rule 5 clock does not toll or stop because he's on the military list. So he will be Rule 5 draft eligible in December of 2022 no matter what. The clock that stops is his minor league free agency clock because that is based on the number of seasons you have played. Rule 5 is based on number of seasons since you signed, right? It doesn't have to do with whether or not you played. Minor league free agency has to do with number of seasons in which you have played. So had he played straight through, he would have been minor league free agent eligible November of 2025. It's now likely going to be November of 2027, presuming he comes back next year. So that is the answer to that question. Great question, Aaron. We appreciate it, amigo. Our next question comes from Forrest. And he has, we've already kind of talked about this, but he says, "Hey guys, 2 quick questions. Number 1, how have Duran's defensive metrics been so far? I feel like I haven't noticed his defense, which I would say is a good thing, but was wondering what the numbers are saying." Ian, maybe you could pull those up while I read number 2. He says, "Number 2, Eck is saying Houck has more than 2 pitches because he has different versions of his fastball and slider. To me, there is a case to be made that if you have a fastball, a cutter, a two-seam, and then a faster and slower slider, that should be good enough for a starter. What do you all think? Thanks. Like always, y'all are killing it. Glad Ian had a good time in my home state of Vermont. Go Lake Monsters. Go Mountaineers. Forrest. And then he sent a follow-up email saying, ugh, right after I send this, Houck gets ambushed his third time through the order. I feel dumb now. Guess that proves Ian's point. Forrest. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, look, first of all, I don't think Houck has, I mean, I don't know if the implication was that he has a fastball, a cutter, a two-seam. He doesn't. He has a four-seam, a sinker, and a slider. I don't think that Houck is intentionally manipulating the shape of the slider.
No, he's not. It's he just has. Yeah, exactly. And I think a good example of what you're talking about is Josh Winkowski, because Josh Winkowski he has slider, but there's definitely two variations. There's a more vertical variation, looks more like a curveball, and there's a more horizontal, and that's deliberate. That's him manipulating the ball. Houck, as you said, is just sometimes he gets more on the side of him, sometimes he gets more on top of it, and that's just hard to predict. You can't predict that the consistency from outing to outing or even inning to inning with that. The fastball and the sinker thing is fair. But I think that with Houck, he needs another velocity band in there.
Yeah.
His fastball, his four seam and his sinker are more or less the same velocity. His sinker doesn't have enough vertical drop for me to be that much of a different look. And similarly against lefties, that's the thing, is he needs that splitter against lefties. And another variation of a slider isn't really going to solve that, and the sinker doesn't really solve it. So I just think that it's having that other look to give them, so that they have to worry about three different unique velocity bands versus just having right now they can sit on two. Mm-hmm. And then in regards to Duran and defense, he's negative WAR according to Fangraphs defensively. His UZR is minus 1.5, which is ultimate zone rating, and his defense DRS is -3, so he's been slightly below average in center, which is kind of what we said. Like, I think he's like a 45 defender in center field. Mm-hmm. So that's right. that kind of tracks with that, I would say.
And then our final question is from Sam. He says, hey guys, with the latest rankings coming out, I'm curious where you would slot Garrett Whitlock in if he were still prospect eligible. I know that's a tricky proposition. You can't just treat one graduate differently than another graduate, but he still has the prospect feel to him, since he seems like a future starter, and they've been easing him back in from Tommy John recovery. Now that we've seen as much promise from him as we have, is he a more exciting player than Duran, Meyer, Casas? Meyer, jeez, I did it. Duran, Meyer, or Casas? Thanks, Sam. I like that question, Ian, because
it's a good question.
As a Rule 5 guy, he kind of gets his prospect eligibility.
He does still feel.
Yeah.
Well, it also feels prospect because he's someone that I'll text with scouts during Red Sox games sometimes, and he's someone we're always talking about because he still feels like part of our world, kind of. Yes. But I would have him. I think he would be in the tier with Duran for me. So I would have Casas 1,
that's fair.
Meyer 2, and then it would be him and Duran would be 3 and 4, and I'd probably have him 4, but I could convince myself just because pitcher risk and. We don't know. We haven't seen him start in what will be 3 years, starting next season. But if I knew that he was going to transition to the rotation and develop into even a number 5 starter or a number 4 starter, I would have him 3.
Yeah, I think I would have him 4th for the same reason. But it's 4th and he's in the tier with Duran. It's not 4th and he's clearly behind him. It's just 4th.
No, and I think
reasons.
They would be a tier for me. Downs is not in that level for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Downs has kind of slipped into a half tier between Duran and the guys behind him at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We say it again, but I wonder if Worcester's messing with him. It was clearly an aggressive assignment, or probably too aggressive, which is interesting, especially because they talked about how he kind of struggled at the alternate site last year. He hasn't faced, he's faced 2 pitchers all season that are younger than him. He has 11 at bats. I'm more or less giving him a mulligan for this year. And, even with all his struggles, he's still going to end up hitting 15 home runs and stealing 15 bases, which is just interesting to me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I mean, we saw flashes of it yesterday. He had a tank off Corey Kluber rehabbing yesterday.
2 home runs in the
yeah,
doubleheader.
exactly.
Yeah,
or the fake doubleheader, but yeah.
The fake doubleheader, right. Oh, I guess one of them might have been an old home run. It was
one
funny.
of them counted from like a month ago or
Yeah.
something. It was really funny too. If you look, I looked at the box scores when I was going through, and Reynel Espinal started both games technically.
Oh, did he? That's funny. Well, it's
Because
funny
he started the first.
because
Yeah.
like I was listening to David Laurila on Fangraphs Audio had an interview with Ryan Fitzgerald, and Fitzgerald was like not correcting him, but Laurila mentioned how many home runs he had on the year, and he's like, well, actually, it's one more. I hit one in a game that got suspended. That's not going to count until they finish it in like later in August.
Yeah,
So
that's funny.
It's kind of funny when it's just like it's there, but it doesn't count yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, thanks everybody for the questions again. Podcast at soxprospects.com. And I think that's about time to wrap it up. One thing that I do want to mention is we want to thank the folks at the Red Sox subreddit over at reddit.com. We did an AMA with them last Wednesday. So go over to Reddit. It's / Red Sox is the subreddit, and check out the AMA. Y'all can still go check it out and read it. We had a blast. We got some really interesting questions. They were pretty fun. I got what was the question I got about DC? Was it what ballparks to go to in DC? I was kind of hoping I'd get like a
Did you
DC
say
restaurant
Frederick?
question. I didn't.
Did you say
because-
Frederick?
I didn't because it doesn't exist anymore. It's
Or not Frederick, sorry. Aberdeen is what I meant to say.
Yeah, well, the thing I said about Aberdeen is it might be the best park, but it's like a 2-hour drive.
Oh, is it? I just
Yeah,
know that
it's
part
not
was
close.
gorgeous. Having
It's
been to it.
beautiful.
It's unbelievable.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
I
one of the
mean-
better. In terms of all minor league parks, it's one of the better ones.
Yeah, what I said was Bowie is the closest to where I live, and it's a fine minor league park, right? Like if there's nothing bad about it, it's also not like, Polar Park gorgeous, right? Fredericksburg is a new park. It's about an hour and a half for me, but I'm on the other side of DC. So if you're in like the western part of DC or in Nova, it's much closer. Great park to go to, especially if Salem's in town. Bowie, the problem with Bowie is Portland's not playing there this year, and I don't know if they're ever going to play there again if they stay with this divisional thing, which would be awful. And then otherwise, like, I don't miss Hagerstown. I do kind of miss Frederick.
Frederick was fine. It wasn't great, but it was
fine.
functional.
It was fine. I kind of liked it. Frederick's a neat little town. Fredericksburg is also a neat little town. So those are better for
Frederick's the first minor league park I ever went to.
Oh, no kidding.
Just to like actually scout players.
Did you shake
players
your
at the time.
keys? Oh, so you were scouting, so you weren't you didn't do shake your keys between innings?
No.
No. Okay. I don't know. I thought it was
It's where I saw Oscar Tejeda, Engel Beltre, some absolute monsters like that back in 2009.
Ian pulling the old Red Sox prospect name game.
Well, no, do you know what's funny? I felt really old this week because I was looking up Engel Beltre's page because I'm weird like that, and he's like 31 years old, and I was like, oof.
That's it, though? It feels like he should
It
be
is,
like
but it's
30. He
not.
should be my age. Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, that probably feels old for you because he's older than you, right?
Well, no, he's the same age as me,
He's the
basically.
same
Or he's a little older than me. He's a little older than me. But yeah, it was kind of wild when I was like, oh, he's older than me, actually. He's actually about a year. He's definitely much older than me. Not much older than me, but older than me. But still, it was just like
I
seeing
think we're
him
hearing
with
you
a
have
31.
a early midlife crisis on this episode right now, Ian.
He's like 6 months older than me.
Okay.
But just seeing his birthday or seeing his age and being like, oh, I scouted him when he was in the minors and now he's that old was like, ooh. But whatever, it happens.
Wow.
So
I'm not even going to touch that one. All right. Well, at any rate, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to Podcast Joe 2.0, who produces and edits episodes of the podcast. So I think I'm going to take this one so we can get it out to y'all. Thank you to our patrons on Patreon.com who support the show. That includes Kyle Kostick and Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Hurricanes 1, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendo, Kevin Catrides, Ben NRI, Paul Denyer, Lendl Martin, Cassandra Bukta, James P. McMahon, Stephen Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Aaron Meta, Jeff Harwood, Jimmy Mountain, Brian Cowan, Dusty G., Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Michael Murphy, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Bob Introne, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, and our newest $5 level Patreon supporter, Michael Stewart. So thank you all for your support. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Follow me at SP Chris Hatfield, and make sure you follow the site at Sox Prospects on both Twitter and Instagram. And like I said earlier, go check out the new look for the site. right before we started recording this, Mike pushed out a new page. So he's pushing out new pages with that new format like a madman right now. So it's changing by the minute. So go check out our new look. So we will, as my wife calls me from Florida, I think that's my sign to go. For Ian, I'm Chris. We're signing off. We'll be back in your eardrums next week. Thanks for listening.